independent voter.
I'm voting for Kamala Harris.
I'm voting for Trump.
I don't think conservative policies are very good at achieving what I believe is good for society.
This is a message for all of those who feel our country is too divided. We know collaboration between opponents is foundational for a healthy democracy. That means people who disagree fiercely must still build the world together. Do we agree?
Donald Trump is kind of a vacuous narcissist.
I kind of see Kamala as more of just the face of a democratic machine promoting policies that I think is going to destroy this country.
He promised so many things, and to me it's like he lied.
I believe that the Democratic Party in general represents it way better than the Republican Party.
The Republican perspective is that this is causing illegal immigration to skyrocket.
As we see with the border bill that Democrats tried to pass, and Republicans shot it down.
World in Conversation is leaving behind the old paradigms of debate and win-or-lose conversations, leading the way for opponents to join forces and break new ground. Our trained facilitators step directly into the most pressing social issues of today, confident that every viewpoint holds a piece of the solution.
Illegal and legal immigration doesn't seem as much of a distinction at this point.
Like Medicare for all.
Student loan forgiveness and
just overall, I don't feel as safe as I did.
That he's very genuine to himself, but I don't think he's actually genuine to any of the politics he represents.
So the tensions of our different ideas are awesome, but how are you going to continue this collaboration across ideas that you don't agree with?
And holding those people accountable that we have influence on, that we elect, is something that I think we really do have power on if we all organize together.
Mm-hmm. What would you do if you saw each other on the street and one of you's a winner and one of you's a loser?
We are the ones that really need to step in and make sure that whatever the result of the election might be, it is respected.
People like you who are willing to engage one another, willing to engage across parties, across ideas, have a lot of influence. How are we going to stitch together the electorate, the people, the citizens, so that we actually can move forward together? For over 20 years, we've pioneered a revolutionary approach that empowers those in conflict to create solutions together. We can solve problems with our opponents, one conversation at a time.
What I have, just so you know, I have a bunch of slides here, the things that I put together that maybe would help with a few things, and I feel like, yeah, why don't we just go with, bro? Let's do who's got a question? What's your first question? You can't. Don't ask me who I voted for. I'm not going to answer that question. All right. All right. Because I didn't vote for anybody. All right. You're good, man.
Trump promised to use the military to eliminate what he dubbed the enemy within. And then at his Madison Square Garden rally, he clarified that the enemy within were specific political opponents. I want to ask, what is your thought on the rise of violent political rhetoric within the United States?
Oh my God. Dude, first off, when you ask a question, it feels like you're reading it. It sounds like you're reading it. So I don't know if you're watching the stream, if the camera wasn't on you, people would think you're reading that question, and you're not. It's in your, it must be imprinted in your brain somewhere. All right, so listen, I don't have to focus on Trump for a second. Let me just focus on violent political rhetoric. We have ratcheted up the rhetoric in many different spheres of life, okay? We saw it on the left. It really got ratcheted up under the the death of George Floyd, you know, the protests against the police. I mean, there are a number of things, right? It has been ratcheted, you know, ramped up on the right with a lot of groups that are these kind of patriot groups, right? Militia groups and so on that are quite numerous, actually, in the United States. We do have a lot of guns here. So the thing is, we are sitting on a powder keg of sorts because we have so many guns. And the people who own the guns are clearly, you know, most people aren't going to use them, and most people aren't intending to, and most people just talk a big game when they say things like that. Like, you'll come get my gun over my dead body or something like that, you know. First off, if you just stop for a second, if you think about what that means, people say the government's going to come get your guns. If we get to the place where the government is coming after the, I don't know, 350 or 400 million guns or whatever it is that Americans have, it's game over. It's done. It's game over. So to even say that is kind of stupid, really, because if you understand what I mean. If the government starts taking people's guns, it's a war. It's a civil war. It's just insane. So you never have to say, the gun owners in here, and I'm not a gun owner, but I am a Second Amendment supporter. I grew up with guns. I shot a gun for the first time when I was 3 years old, right? So it's like I'm a gun person, but I just don't own a gun. So it's fine. It's not going to happen. And if it happens, you don't want to be here anyway. Just get up to Canada, go to Mexico, go somewhere, because we're in the middle of a civil war. Okay? So there's a lot of rhetoric on that. It is, in my humble opinion, knowing, as someone who has studied revolutions and social movements, and when I was a PhD student, I had two areas of focus. One was Latin America and Africa, socio-political development, and the other was revolutions and social conflict and social movements. So I happen to have a lot of background on revolutions. We don't want a revolution, my friends, and it's very dangerous for leaders on any side to be sparking that in any way. And so when the militia groups grow because some candidate gets voted into power and they're afraid of the candidate, it's incumbent upon political leaders to try to tone that stuff down. It's really dangerous to have so many guns. So yeah, so I'm concerned. Yeah, I don't like that kind of rhetoric, which is why you don't hear it from me. You don't hear that kind of stuff from me because it's very dangerous. Yes. Wait, next one?
Hey, Sam. So I thought a lot about it, and I honestly really couldn't bring myself to vote for either of the main candidates in this election. And the main reason is because I don't feel like I align at all with either of them in terms of international politics. Yeah. And I was just wondering that we could have someone in a major party who is not so interested in spending so much tax dollars in killing people overseas. But basically, that's how I see it. I just find it really difficult to get behind that. And I think there's definitely times when intervention is necessary. But for the most part, I think that we spend all too much money on killing people that I'll never meet and I'll never see and are not part of my country.
Yeah, well, I'm in agreement with you, okay? You know, of all the money that that the world spends on weapons of war and militaries, so not just weapons, but militaries, you know, that just includes like uniforms and feeding them and, you know, housing and this sort of thing, right? The U.S. spends almost half of that. We're responsible for almost half. Okay, so we're 4% of the world's population. And so it makes, you know, when you think about if you're God kind of looking down on this. Let's assume there's a God and God can see, right? Let's anthropomorphize God for a second, and God is looking down and is looking at this nation, this great, really amazing nation called the United States, that has done something that no nation in history has ever been able to do, which is in spite of the atrocities that have happened here, which is fundamentally the genocide of the indigenous peoples, the longest period of a just chattel slavery, of slavery based on a different kind of slavery, right, is what we saw here, right? In spite of that, we have managed to only have one civil war and bring people together from all over the world and only have one civil war. This is in that sense, you talk about make America great again, that's the greatest feat that the United States has ever done, is the fact that I can look out in this room and see people from all over the world, and 99.999% of the time we get along really well. That is just amazing. And you could talk about things like, well, but we have police violence and all. We have so little violence compared to how much any reasonable sociologist would predict that we should have. We have so little that it's like, man. So it's disturbing, but I think you're actually you're too narrow in your focus just about war. It's not just about war. It's about the ways in which we conquer people economically and politically as well, and have done that. I mean, that's changing, by the way. And because it's changing is one of the reasons we have Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is standing up to that and the ways in which the West, the United States in particular, has really driven things. He's not standing up to the violence. He's standing up to a different way of operating in the world. So, yeah, I would say don't be so narrow on it. There's all the economic and political components to that. Yeah. Yes.
Hi, Sam. Right here. I guess my question is, depending on who's elected, how do you think that, women's reproductive rights will continue to change? Because I know, with the repeal of Roe v. Wade, a lot of women in more conservative states have, they've been dying in larger numbers because there's less, protections for pregnant women.
Yeah. Okay, so here, let me... this is a really tough question. Here's the problem. I want to answer this question truthfully, but I'm a man, and you're going to see me as a man, and so I know that the way you hear what I have to say is going to be filtered through the fact that I'm not only a man, but I'm a white man, and I'm a privileged white man. I didn't used to be when I was your age, but I am now. And so, I'm educated, I'm mobile, I can move around, if my wife and I need anything, we can fly to the other side of the world, first class, if we want. You know what I mean? We got to dig into our savings, but the point is, we can take care of it. Okay? So, we, in the West, in the more industrialized West, and in particular here in the United States, we have embraced, women have achieved a level of power compared to men that is not going backward, okay? Now, there's an invisible domination by, patriarchy that's in effect, right? Look, when Lori comes to class, you just read the comments on the stream and whatever, including by some of you. It's they're just critiquing her because she's a woman. If I were a woman, I would not be Sam Richards. I would not have, this class would not fill up in the same way. If people wouldn't say oh yeah, I really like Social 118 in the same way. I'd have to bend over backwards to get people, to get you to appreciate the kinds of things that I was saying. And I know that that's true. So there is a patriarchy in place, but we have the genie's out of the bottle, so to speak, and we're not going back. We're seeing a step back on one hand of women's reproductive rights, but you know what? Listen. There's some things I just don't talk about publicly. So let me say this. We had Roe v. Wade was passed, okay? 73, I think it was, right? Do you know people who have the idea that there's a very large segment of people in the United States who have the idea that abortion of any type is murder. It's murder. It's taking a life, okay? So do you understand what it means if you have that idea? And it doesn't take much to have that idea, by the way. I mean, because when does life begin? At conception or at some point in the next, when does it begin? The second day, the third day, the 157th day? When does life begin? So it's very simple to say it begins at conception. Okay. Well, if that's the case, then if you believe that, and at least half of Americans, when Roe v. Wade was passed, more than half of Americans thought that. Do you know that they sat with that all of these years, believing or seeing or thinking or observing or knowing, let's say knowing, that every day, babies or embryos, life was being taken. And so I remember one day I was having a conversation with somebody on this, and it's actually two people. It was a man and a woman, and they were both very pro-life and opposed abortion. And I just walked over and I put myself in their shoes, and I said, okay, what is it to be them? And I remember the next week I drove past State College's Women's Reproductive Rights Clinic, which was where women, they provided abortion procedures for women, right? And I thought, and I drove past that, and I drove past it as them. And I went, I get that. I really see what I feel what they've been feeling, or people in their shoes with their beliefs have been feeling for so long. And it just switched in me. I went, okay, all right. So now we have the Supreme Court ruling, and now it goes back to the states, and states can decide what they're going to do, and states are making some very difficult decisions. A woman here in the United States a couple of weeks ago died because she went to, 3 different hospitals, and she couldn't get treated because she was pregnant, and nobody wanted to even see her. They didn't want to even admit her into the emergency room. There's just we can't even touch, there's nothing we can do. I'm like, how did we as human beings get to this? How did we get to this? She didn't want an abortion. She just wanted to be checked. Something was wrong, and she had a miscarriage, and she died. It's like, this should not be politicized in the way that it is. And as women, as a man, it doesn't matter, men or women, it's irrelevant, because I have all sorts of women in my life who I love. We shouldn't politicize this in this way. This should not happen. But we've done it, and it's a tragedy. So, that's a long answer to show you that I think about this in very complex ways. Your women's rights, you've kind of taken a step back, but that's okay. It's okay. Look, a woman died 2 weeks ago. It's not okay. I don't mean it callously like that, but I'm thinking about the larger questions, the historical trajectory of where we're at. And remember, you all are really young. I've got 40 years and 45 years on all of you. That's a lot. I've lived through a lot. So what you see a certain history, and I'm like, man, I got 4 decades. So I feel like what we need, maybe what can happen from this, is a very thoughtful, very smart, and a true healthcare. Not true, but healthcare for women at so many levels. Healthcare benefits men more than women. It's not just this. It's like women, you just really have no idea. Like how little we know about perimenopause, for example. You know, how it is. Really. Like how. Here, I got help. Here, I'm just going to say this to women. How many of you are really, when you're in your menses period each month, right? When you're bleeding, my wife says bleeding. How many of you are really open about it with the men in your lives? Like how many are just like, yeah, I'm bleeding? How many is like, yeah, not a problem? It's like, and how many of you keep it silent because it's like, oh, that's not something to talk about, or I'm ashamed, or my boyfriend doesn't want to hear that, my father doesn't want to hear that, my brothers. It's like, dude, this is your body, this is your health care. This is as natural as the fact that my hair is graying. That you bleed once a month. This is part of you know what I mean? And so, but I'm speaking to most women because there's a trans community that's different. And I'm speaking just to the trans community. I'm speaking in a different way. So these are cisgendered women. So if we can't even do that, how can we get to the next place? How about that as a response? God. Yeah. I get worked up over that, by the way, because Lori spent 40 years having really painful periods. And I watched. I lived with a woman who battled to get people to even have anyone try to really understand what was going on and how little information. And we don't study women. We don't put women's bodies out front. We're still looking at men all the time. It's like, man, there's just something really this is a patriarchal world. Not entirely, not 100%, but okay. We got, yes?
Hey, Sam. I wanted to ask you why you think it is that the country is so completely and utterly divided in their vote. And as an extension of that, do you believe it's catered in any way, shape, or form?
It's catered?
Yeah, like almost intentional that we're supposed to be divided.
Oh my God. Whoa. Hey, can you put slide number 3 up, by the way? And then we're going to do 4. All right, I'm going to show you an answer to this question. First off, when I went down, back up, slide 3. One more, back up. When I went down to Columbia a couple weeks ago, I took Julie a case and a half of Blue Moon. So there she is with her Blue Moon. She sent me that. So I always take her beer when I go down. All right, because she can't buy it in Columbia. All right, Julie, that's for you. Go to the next slide. Yesterday I was talking to Julie on the phone, and she's made this statement: the power behind the power. Okay, you have the power in a society. So I'm going off your catered thing, like almost as though it's intentional. There's a power behind the power. And the power behind the power isn't necessarily a group of people like the elders of Zion kind of thing, right? Like it's the Jewish conspiracists who are really running the country kind of stuff. That's just anti-Semitic trope nonsense, right? But there's a power behind the power of like, it's like it's an energy or it's something. It's just the way the system is organized in a way that just keeps power concentrated in a certain place, right? And there's also the gazillionaires who are, moving things around and stuff, but they're not nearly as organized as a lot of us might believe. And I've spent enough time with them, some of them, to know that that's not happening, right? So the question then is, why are we so divided, right? Can you give me 5 minutes on this answer, and I'll give you actually what I think is the answer that you all really need to. You want to know why Trump? I'll tell you why Trump is here. It's actually quite makes sense, and if you understand it, then you're like, you can stop thinking that Trump is here. Go to slide 15. All right. Now, so here. No, is that 15? Oh, did I mess that up? Shoot. No, you know what? I didn't. No, one more. Yeah, right there. Okay, look. We're in a new era where we need to. I'm going to try to answer why. This is how I think about it. Okay. With the Great Depression, the way we got out of the Great Depression, and it was probably one tiny 2 pages in your history books, but the Great Depression is when the first time the entire market just collapsed. And the way we got out of it is the government, the U.S. government just played a major role, just jumped in and just invested in the economy and invested in putting people back to work. We borrowed money and borrowed and borrowed and borrowed, and we just got the wheels running again. The wheels came to a stop, and we just forced them to run again. And we had a government that was very much a socialist-type government. And then World War II happened, and we weren't prepared for World War II. And once the Germans invaded Poland, and once we realized, oh my God, we're in, we had to suddenly have an army to go against Germany in a matter of like 9 months. Do you know what that took? Do you have any idea what that took? That took complete government intervention. Pure, as close to socialism as you're ever going to imagine. Okay? So this moves along. And then for the next decades, we're sort of battling back and forth between how much government involvement there will be and how much there won't be. But we moved into this in the 1980s with Ronald Reagan into this. You understand government involvement. Okay, you got that? You see how important that is. Because the government, as opposed to the government just sitting back and letting people in business do what they want to do, the government was really holding the reins very tightly. Then you go to this, what's called neoliberalism. And neoliberalism is basically free market, deregulation, just let business do whatever it wants to do, travel anywhere in the world. Well, this is what happens. Business started realizing, wait, why am I going to pay to have these desks made here in the United States when I got to pay laborers, back in 1980, I got to pay them $20 an hour. I can just go to Mexico and I can pay somebody 20 hours a week. And so suddenly jobs were going and everything is changing and banks are deregulating. We deregulate the banks so they're not paying their taxes and everything changes. And the stock market just blows up, man. It just blows up. And we just get fabulously rich. But we see a very distinct difference between the haves and the have-nots. In the middle class doesn't keep up with the haves. And so suddenly we got these billionaire class growing. And the billionaires are the ones that are investing in all the businesses that are making these kinds of things overseas and products going back and forth. No regulation. Yeah, no regulation is awesome. And it helped to bring other nations out of poverty. So we saw global poverty decrease tremendously, but we also saw that the majority of people in the United States did not keep up, could not keep up in the way they really needed to keep up. They would be predicted to keep up because the profits were going into the hands of smaller numbers of people, all right? Now, but what we didn't predict, here, go to this one. Look at this. Go to 13. Back up. Yeah, right there, China. Okay? So now you got 1985. Look at China. This is China's GDP. Okay? 1985, it's like $200. That's the average Chinese citizen was making $200 a year. Okay? What we didn't predict was that some countries around the world were going to use this deregulation and neoliberalism to their advantage. And China was one of them. And China, look what China did, man. And see where that arrow is? That's where the U.S. is. That's our GDP. But look at China right below that in 2023. Man, dude, Chinese, see the Chinese? It's a different world order, man. The global economy is not what it was in 1985. It's completely different. And there are a lot of Americans who are realizing this, and they're feeling this, and they're seeing it. And no one has stopped it. No one's been able to stop it, and no one's been able to really stay like, oh, this is a problem. For me, I'm a globalist in the sense that I'm an American citizen, but, I'm okay. Neoliberalism, it's been really good for people around the world and so on, but I'm 60, how old am I? 64? It's like, I see it a little differently. But man, Trump is saying, hey, this open borders, this deregulation stuff, no tariffs. What do you mean no tariffs? You gotta have tariffs. You gotta control this thing, man. And Trump is saying, you gotta control it. If you don't control this global exchange, this global marketplace, the U.S., China's gonna continue to rise, and they're gonna pass the U.S. And it's not just China. The actual big country in the 21st century is India. It's like, it's not there now, we're not even close, but the world system is changing, and Trump is saying, we're going to stop all this. Yeah, we're going to stop it. And Obama didn't stop it. George W. Bush didn't stop it. The whole war in Iraq was all about neoliberalism. Obama didn't stop it at all. Obama kept it going. You see, Biden is like, they can't stop it. They can't even imagine it. But Trump, he's touching that nerve, man. And it's like, yeah, I get it. I get that. And so we're now at a place, if you go back to that first slide, what's next? The question marks, right? I don't know what's next. Nationalism, right? There's something else. And that's what we're battling out right now. So you may not, there are 1,000 reasons you could not like Trump, but he's looking at the future here of this country. I don't think he's doing it correctly. I think he's missing a lot of stuff because he's from this billionaire class, and I think he's just not very smart about a lot of things he needs to be smarter about. But he's willing to take some things on that other people aren't willing to see, and they're too invested in it. The whole neoliberal vision and thinking is just part of everybody. So that's the way to understand Trump, man. And it's like, yeah, I got it. Of the two candidates, can I say this? If I'm going to bet on which of these two candidates can really address this neoliberal world that we're in and like pull it back by the reins, I'm going to be like, yeah, Trump's going to do it. He's going to be able to do stuff. Partly because he just does stuff. He doesn't even think. He just does stuff, which is the good and the bad. His people. So I spent a lot of time, reading from people and listening to people who work with him, and he's so ADD. Okay, am I allowed to say it? He's like ADD. He's like his mind. They can't keep. He's like a little kid who's been eating too much Halloween candy. He can't think straight, and all they do, what they learn is like, he's like, I want to see this happen. And they're like, okay, Mr. President, We'll make sure that happens. And then they just don't do it because they know that he'll forget about it the next day. They used to argue with him, and then he would dig in. But now the people closest to him realize, we just ignore him. We'll tell him, yeah, okay, we'll take care of that. And he moves on to something else because that's how he is. There's the good and the bad of that, by the way. Actually, from a certain angle, it's horrible. Like, that's the best we can do, but nobody else stood up to neoliberalism in the way that he did. Yeah. Well, Bernie Sanders, but, Bernie Sanders is a communist, so we had to knock him out. Even though Joe Rogan, by the way, who just endorsed Trump, endorsed Bernie Sanders, 4 years ago. So, see what I mean? This is like insanity. All right, all right, go ahead, bro.
Hello, sir. I want to ask, how do you think things in Europe are going to be affected by the winner of these elections?
Oh, man, a lot. Well, it really depends on NATO. That's going to be a huge issue. And we have Europeans watching, by the way, there are a lot of Europeans watching the stream, but there's also a group of Europeans at this Mandeville Academy, these young students in Gouda in the Netherlands, they have a 1-year program at Mandeville for really advanced, special, prepared, unique students. So they probably are asking this question also. It's going to have an impact because all of these questions about neoliberalism and tariffs and trade and everything that Trump is trying to work with, he's pushing up against our closest allies in the West. And they're all dealing with the same questions. Man, they're struggling with the same stuff, the same politics, the divisions. You think our divisions are great? Their divisions are great. Between the extreme nationalism is such an issue all through Europe. It's an issue here. Immigration is an issue all through Europe. It's an issue here. Everybody is struggling with it. Everyone's trying to find a way around it. And we think nationalism might be an issue here. Look, we have Canada up to the north and Mexico to the south. You got Belgium or Germany. You have countries all around you, man. This is it's going to be just huge in Europe. Whoever gets elected, because Trump has unleashed something, by the way. So, he unleashed it 8 years ago, which needed to be unleashed, by the way. You got that. We needed to deal with this right here, this neoliberalism stuff. So it just happened that he was going to be the guy who did it. And I swear it was probably almost by accident. But when I listen to that guy, I think, like, whenever he says anything that kind of makes sense, I don't have to take any. I have a lot of funny stuff I can say about Trump. Harris isn't funny. Like, you can't, if you're a comedian, I'm really a comedian to the core. She's not funny. I can't even make jokes about her because she's just like a California Democratic politician. I don't even know what I mean by that, but yeah, I know what I mean by that. $500 bottles of wine. That's what I mean by it. Trump is just a Big Mac eating fucking knucklehead, man. He's so fun. He's so easy. Anyway, dude, wait. All right, go ahead, man.
Hi, Sam. I was wondering, because I think it's interesting to get people's perspectives on this. How much do you think Trump was at fault for January 6th?
Dude, completely. Yeah. Look, here, first off, right? It's stoking. Look, first off, y'all, right? I'm going to put my flag in the ground right here, okay? We have people who have been studying election fraud and elections That's all they do for a living. Really, people like me who really don't have an agenda. All they do is study this stuff day in and day out, and they've been doing it for their whole careers. They publish papers on it. They analyze things. It's like that's all they do. And they're very clear about the fact that we have very, very little election fraud in the United States, and the vast majority of it is accidental. So they caught these like felons and eight felons in Florida who voted, and they weren't supposed to vote because they had a kind of a felony in Florida that like, nah, you're still not allowed to vote. You got to wait 5 years or whatever after you get out of prison. It's like, but they didn't wait 5 years because they thought, well, okay, we can vote. It's like, no, you had to wait 5 years. So they committed election fraud, right? Okay, that's not election fraud. Like, you know what I mean? That's not what we're talking about. That's like 8 people, or you got 2 people over here, or here, or here, or whatever. It's a handful of people. And the degree, they are very clear. You can trust me on this, please. I'll take it to my grave. Okay, and I realize that when I say something like that, you all are young minds. You're very impressionable, and so I'm very careful, but I'm going to say it. The people who study this stuff are pretty clear that whether it's 50-50, whether the Democrats benefit or the Republicans benefit. In other words, the Democrats benefit as much as the Republicans, and it's a really very small number of cases. So when you hear these stories on the real fake news, and the real fake news is YouTube and Twitter or whatever else people put shit out on, then it's like somebody brought 2,500 ballots to some precinct. 2,500. Somebody filled out 2,500 ballots. People did, and they brought them. Dude, this was like 3 weeks ago. Dude, do you know how easy it is to get 2,500 ballots, you sign the names, you do whatever you're going to. I mean, it's just silly. It's silly. It's silly. It's not happening. So when you have people who are promoting that, when people around that person, people in their inner circle are saying, hey, sir, this is actually not really happening, and they just ignore them, and they keep saying it over and over and over again, and then you have susceptible people. I'm thinking about this every single day, all I do. You all don't realize my life is actually really effing boring. I wake up in the morning, I sit at this is my life. Ready? I'll show you. You never have to come to my house. You can come to my house and look in the window any day, every day. Weekends, Saturday, Sunday. Usually I take one weekend day and I do something. Maybe I go golfing or something. But I come back in, and this is my life every day. Okay. All I'm doing is researching, studying. That's all I do. And so I'm thinking this through. And I'm thinking it through with the idea is I got to get it right. Because if I don't get it right, when I put stuff out on YouTube, you can't imagine the kind of emails I get from people when I miss something. So I'm trying to be as careful as possible because God, I just get slammed with people telling me I'm an idiot, which I understand that I can be an idiot. Like, you don't have to tell me that. But I try to be as careful. Not everyone has the time that I do. So then you start believing stuff. It's like, come on, man, don't stop. And when you're in power, like me, I'm in power. I'm in power right now. I have an obligation to say things in a way that I'm not creating more hate, more division, greater likelihood that people are going to go march on Old Main or wherever they're going to march and get their guns and buy more bullets and do all the things and like be fighting each other in the streets. I have an obligation for that. So it's people come together. So in that sense, absolutely responsibility. And anyone who thinks otherwise, absolutely, everybody around him has said he knew exactly. Dude, it's not even a question to me, man. He basically told people, go lynch Mike Pence, whatever. Like, what more do you need to know? This guy just he lost his mind. I get that. I lose my mind sometimes. But it's like, no. And yet, neoliberalism, got it? You see? You got, there are other things. I can believe, I can see like, yeah, okay, I don't, this dude, man, yeah, oh God. But I'm looking at the future, and that really sucks that happened. And it really, it's really terrible. But, and this is me thinking now, right? Because you can imagine how my mind goes. But, yeah, but, oh God, all right, hang on. But yet, we need to go in this direction over here. So if I gotta like support this guy to go in this direction over here, then this direction is more important than all those terrible things that I see here. I could make that argument very easily. Very easily. Yeah, it's not. And what I would wish upon people is that you actually would look. Matt, I'm going to use you for a second, okay? If you don't mind. You know, the first time I knew that we were in for something really deep with this guy was when he made fun of this guy Serge. He's a New York Times reporter. This was like 9 years ago probably. And Serge has a muscular condition. Matt, similar to you. Do you know the story? I don't think he has your condition, but he has a similar condition. Serge does, okay? So Matt here. And I don't, so your classmate Matt, right? So can you just, I'm gonna use you here. So you're good. You've been up in front of the class. You're good. Everyone has met you. Have you been invited to a frat party yet, by the way?
No. I've been busy.
Well, but did anyone invite you?
No.
Dude, what the fuck, dudes? Frat boys. You know what I mean? Seriously, what the fuck? He already said he wanted to go, so like... Anyway, look, bro, so here. So Matt here, okay? You got it. You remember Matt, okay? So the New York Times reporter, he's a good reporter. He's a good guy. Trump had said something. He made a comment that there were thousands and tens of thousands or whatever it was, people cheering when the New York, in 9/11, when the Trade Center towers went down, and there were people all over New York, thousands of people cheering. And the reporter, who has a muscular condition, so very similar to Matt, his hand is like this, okay? The report, but it doesn't stop him from being an awesome reporter, you know, just like he wrote, actually, to the best of my knowledge, it wasn't thousands of people, but there were a few cases of people who were on rooftops cheering, okay? Well, Trump didn't like that because he made him look bad. And so Trump saw Serge in the audience at one of his rallies, and Trump started doing this thing about all these New York Times reporters, and like, oh, yeah, and he was mocking him, okay? And people condemned him, and nothing happened. Can you imagine if I mocked Matthew like that? Dude, yeah, you'd smack me, right? Yeah. Chris, your buddy, he'd smack me. Can you imagine that? Okay? But it didn't. But no, he did. And after that, it was the grab him by the pussy thing. When he basically said, I just see beautiful women. Okay? So this is everybody. All men, all women, straight, gay, doesn't matter. Trans, doesn't matter. He basically said on a hot mic, yeah, man, I just see like these beautiful women and I'm a star and they love me and I just start kissing them. And they don't make me stop. I just start. And then I do anything I want with that. I grab them by the pussy. And that comes out on a hot mic. Nothing happened. Condemned him. I thought the first one I thought, this is the end of his campaign. Do you know, because if I did that, not only would Chris beat me up, I'd be out of a job tomorrow. And if I made the comment, if you caught me at a hot mic talking to to G-Dog in the back room about how I just forced myself onto women, I'd be out of a job tonight. Okay? But no, it didn't. And let me tell you something, right? That's when I knew, and this is the lesson, and Trump supporters, I'm giving you something here, okay? Don't defend that. Don't defend that. Both those things and a long list of other things are just as horrible as they truly seem to be. There's no way that you could defend me mocking Matt. And there's no way you can defend Trump mocking this reporter. There's no way. You have to say, man, God, yeah, man, that is bullshit. But here's the thing. What it means is that there's something else that's propelling his power, okay? There's something else, man, that makes him Teflon to those things, right? And it's not evil. It's not evil. Because at your age, you're thinking, oh, that's pure evil. Dude, the only way it's evil is if when I look around the room and I see Trump supporters, and a lot of you, 25% of you voted for Trump, right? At least. And 25% are strongly Harris people, and then you got everybody else. So I don't know how many actually voted for Trump, but it's more than 25%. But I mean, let me say that again. 25% are hardcore here, 25% are hardcore here, and 50% of you are right in the center. You're just like, yeah, whatever, I'll go the way the wind blows, right? So I don't know how many voted for Trump, but if I had to guess, I would say it's probably 35% of you did. Okay? Now, so if you say, oh, Trump mocking this reporter in the way he did, if you say, oh, that's just evil, well, that means that everybody that voted for him is evil. Not evil. Dude, you met Mac. Mac's wearing his Make America Great. He's not evil. Dude, Mac's a smart dude, man. You guys, you're smart guys. Like, come on, man, you're all right. It's fine. There's something else. There's something bigger at play. I don't know what it is. But what it meant for me as a sociologist, when I realized it, years ago, when I realized it, it was just like, whoa, man. Whoa, shit. That's not taking this dude down? Like, whoa. There's something at play. Historical forces are at play that that are really big. You see that? You get that, right? That's not evil. That's historical force. There's something at play that it's like the population of Americans have decided that we got to turn this boat this way. And for whatever reason, this is the guy that's going to do it. And so you just got to turn away from that stuff that appears just so, base, man. It's so base. Because, dude, if the guy had said that about Lori, if Trump had said that about my wife, I'd have smacked him also. It's like, dude, are you fucking kidding me, man? If he'd have said it about any one of you, I'd please. So you all hear what I just said, right? I'm speaking as a sociologist. There's something bigger at play here because the people supporting him are not evil. And Harris, dude, it's pretty easy. I know I have to deal with the Trump thing, but dude, Harris is, it's the same old song and dance, man. It's the same, she's a perfectly fine person, but people who hang out with Trump say he's actually kind of a nice guy. I watched the video of him playing golf with the one Bryson guy. Whatever. I was like, it was really fun watching him. They had a camera on him. He's just yammering on about stuff. I'm like, oh, I like that guy. I saw him as a human being. I saw him in that space. So I'm like, yeah, Harris is fine. But come on, man. If you really understood the Democratic part, the whole thing, what that whole group is, and stop thinking that they actually support the poor and the working Americans. If you actually stop that, if you just stop that stuff for a second and actually look into what they represent, it's like, yeah, okay. We got to hit reset and start over. So, all right, man. Niels. All right. Niels from the Netherlands says, do Americans have enough empathy for the other side to keep the country together? Niels, man, I'm concerned that we don't. I'm concerned that the visions, most of you do. You're not going to be fighting in the streets. But you got enough of these militia groups and the left and the right that, I don't know, it could break down really fast. Yeah, it could break down really, really fast. And I think that you all, maybe some people, don't understand how quickly it could break down. So no, I'm not certain we'll keep it together. I'm hoping we do. But I'm praying that the victory or the loss, whatever it is that happens, is decisive enough that, yeah, man, I don't know. Yeah. All right, man. Your daily question, the daily dose of D. All right.
So, from a couple weeks ago, I heard many people specifically venting their frustration at the fact that there are only 2 candidates that realistically you can choose from.
Yeah.
And many people, myself included, believe that to move away from such systems, we will have to implement a ranked choice voting system.
Yeah.
Do you think? What do you think of it? And should it be implemented? And how could it be implemented in the United States?
Well, here's the problem. The issue is that the political parties are the ones with the power. Okay. These are billion-dollar enterprises, and they, in the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, they have equal amounts of power. Okay, billion-dollar enterprises. They would have to be willing to give up that kind of power, and the power would then go to the hands of more and more into the average citizens. But the problem with power is power corrupts, and it's going to be really difficult for that to happen, and I don't think it will ever happen. Yeah, the system will break down before that. That's my gut feeling. Just like having a third party. Trump could have been, when Trump first was running, my secret hope was that he would win by a decisive enough margin. See, he didn't think he was going to beat Hillary Clinton. They didn't even have a team in place. They were certain they were going to lose. They didn't have anyone in place. They didn't prepare for him to be president in 2016. Had they done that, it's possible that Trump could have been that third party. And the Republicans and the Democrats would have both been competing, and he would have developed enough energy in the center, because he would have been in the center, and he could have really done some things to make some very important changes. But he didn't do that. And instead, he aligned with the Republicans, saw, hey, we can align with this guy. Even though Trump had seemed to be more aligned with the Democrats. And then then they went. And then it was game over. But it could have happened. Trump was the best possibility for that. And that was a secret hope of mine, that was going to happen. And that would have been your third party. And he wouldn't have been as crazy as, whatever. Dude. Yeah.
I just wanted to kind of ask you, people have been claiming that there's been a rise in political extremism, especially especially towards the right, amongst young men not only in America, but like globally.
Yeah.
So like, how do you think, do you think that there has been a rise
Definitely.
in this ideology, and like I'm kind of wondering, like, why do you think these young men seek these groups, and what do you believe they're searching for when they start delving into these like dangerous ideologies?
Well, first off, people remember the class we just did last week, like losing our country, right? People have the sense that they really are losing the country. The countries are changing. We don't notice it so much because we're a multicultural nation. But man, when you're Austria or Italy or the Netherlands or Sweden or Finland or in France, right? Although mostly it's in bigger cities, right? But you really see that, whoa, we're no longer what we were. And so you're losing the culture, losing the country. And so we can say, oh, that's a really good thing because that's multiculturalism. But it's not necessarily, why is that a good thing? I mean, Korea is going to hit this. Korea is 97% Koreans. You go to Korea, 90% of the people have genetic ancestry from their great-great-great-grandparents who lived in the peninsula of Korea. So, you haven't lost anything, but you really lose. And so people feel that. And then if you tend to be a person who is going to be harmed the most by neoliberal policies of the Democrats and the Republicans, it's like these people are out. They're not, my job, just the jobs that we had in this town, they all just went to Mexico, or they went to Guatemala, or they went to Brazil. It's like, F y'all, man. Who am I going to fight? I got to fight somebody. So I'm going to come up with some story about who I can fight. You can't just fight the neoliberals. That's nobody. And then you got somebody, you got the Democrats saying like, hey, go fight. It's the Republicans. Donald Trump, he's your enemy. Go fight him. It's like, wait, hang on a second. No. If you listen to what Trump's saying, he's actually on your side over here. But they're telling you to fight him. And then the Trump side is saying like, no, those Democrats, go fight them. And it's like, no, this is the problem. And then you got all these people that came back from war. All these men. It's not just men, by the way. But all these people are going and they're ready and they got all the, we recruited more and more people. We used to recruit all through the 70s and 80s, but nobody went to war. But these people did. And then you're back and you're trained and you're ready and someone says, hey, we need a militia. You're like, hey, I'm in. I got the training. So you look at all these militia groups, of which there are many. Pennsylvania has more militia groups than any state in the country, last I heard. But again, that's one of those things that I don't keep up on my research, so it may or may not be true. And then you got all these, I would volunteer. I got all the guns. I want to support my country. I wave a flag. I put myself on the line for my country. So like, yeah, I'll join the militia group. And then you lose track of what you're actually fighting for because you're not paying attention because you're so busy with other things that you're not listening to Sam Richards, for example, or someone who's trying to be reasonable saying like, wait a minute, hang on a second. Maybe your problem isn't as simple as the way you're making it out to be. Maybe it's actually more complex. And then you get lost and you go, and before you know it, you're down a rabbit hole. It's like, oh, God, how did that happen? People aren't, anyway. Dude, are we good? Wait, I want to.
Why do people vote for the party instead of the person?
Because we just do, dude. Why did you support Penn State instead of Ohio State? You could have gone to Ohio State. What do you care about the football team? You live in a dorm. You go to school here. You don't know anyone on the football team. What do you care if they win or lose? I mean, who gives a flying F? Really? Your life doesn't change. Did anyone's life change because we lost the game on Saturday? No. No one's life changed. It doesn't matter. But you do. It's like, oh, but I'm a Nittany Lion. And I'm not a Buckeye. That's like, oh, God, okay, well, whatever. And so you just getting connected to the party. And you don't study what the party represents, because if you study what the party represented, you probably you'd choose the Green Party, you'd choose Libertarians, you'd choose some other party. You wouldn't choose either Democrats or Republicans. But that's what it is, dude. Oh, yeah, right. One more. Niels, and then we'll go. We're back to the Netherlands. How do Americans feel about Article 5, an attack on one is an attack on all with NATO countries? Listen, I think that most Americans, because they've been told now that that doesn't matter, that you Europeans, you're not paying your fair share, and that we're paying the majority, and so therefore why should we really care about Article 5, right? We've been told, because most Americans have no idea what it was, what it is. We don't know what NATO is. We don't know what the EU is. We have no idea about any of it. So, like, yeah. Most Americans would just be like, yeah, okay, whatever. Go ahead. Yeah, so we don't care about Article 5. And I'm not going to take the second question. That's too. My perspective, my perspective changes all the time. Yeah. Dude, hang on. I want to go here first. Yeah, bro.
So what are your thoughts on the idea that most of today's issues can only be solved on the socially and cultural level as opposed to the political level, and the idea that Trump is probably one of the largest cultural icons of today?
Yeah. Dude, he is the largest cultural icon today, man. So this is what I mean about you gotta, if you're any kind of sociologist, you gotta step back and watch this phenomenon and say, whoa, man. Okay? I wish he understood that, because if he really understood how much power he had, and if he accepted that, if he really stepped into it, he would stop saying some of the really dumb things he said. And the media would stop covering a lot of it. But, part of it, it's not... Stop calling it fake news, by the way. It's like the guy says the most outlandish shit, and like you cover it. You just keep typing like, oh my God, he just said this. And you go to you listen to any of his rallies, and it's just one thing after another. And you're just like, I'm constantly amazed. Like, oh my God, he just said this. So... it's not that, but maybe they would stop covering it, and he would, and if the supporters of Trump, my wish is for the supporters of Trump, would put your energy not behind him, but behind the movement, and stop seeing the other side. And same goes for the other side. Stop just making stuff up and believing simplistic things about the so-called Democrat. I don't even know who Democrats Harris stuff. And the Democrats Harris people, stop trying to pigeonhole Trump supporters as somehow really bad or evil people, man. They're part of this intense movement that is going to transform the world, and not necessarily for the worst. That's the thing you got to really understand. It's not necessarily for the worse. And if you don't understand what I mean by that, then study what neoliberalism has done in the past 40 years. Study the negative consequences of neoliberalism. And you will see that if we start moving away from that maybe 30 years from now, we're going to say, that was a painful moment, but damn good thing we got through it. Yeah. That would be my wish for people. Wait, hang on. Can I? Yeah. Wait, hang on one second.
We're good to do the...
Okay, wait. Do you want to take... Here's what's up. We got... Some of you probably have to leave, right? That's fine. You can leave. I'm perfectly content to stay another 15 minutes or so and continue to answer some questions. We'll keep the stream going. So we could do the... I have a few more things I'd like to say. I'd like to actually show you. By the way, I do have some graphs. Yeah. Fuck. Okay. Let me just, by a show of hands, so we know whether I should do this or not. If I said, yeah, we're going to do the quiz and you can leave if you want, but if you want to stick around, I'll stick around for another 15 minutes and answer some more questions. How many of you would say like, oh yeah, I'll stick around an extra 15 minutes. I really want to do that. Okay, that's not enough. All right. Dude, if you weren't watching, it's like, this is welcome to my world, right? That's why, yeah. All right. Okay, let's do the quiz. Bro, I'll answer your question after class. Hey, I got a question. Can I email you those? Yeah, you can email me. Go ahead, ask your question, bro. We're discriminating against the MAGA folks. Do that, and then we'll go.
Real quick, don't forget, if you signed up for a global dialogue, you have to go.
Yeah, don't miss that. Hey, we're gonna keep the stream running actually for a few minutes. Even in spite of the fact that people are leaving, I'm gonna stay and answer a few questions. All right? Yeah. Bro, do you have a question? Go ahead and ask me. Yeah, it'll work. Go ahead. I can hear you.
Regardless of how you feel Israel-Palestine, of how it should be resolved, either Israel taking all of Gaza or Gaza going all to Palestine, which of the two candidates do you think will be more effective on the international stage of ending the war of Ukraine and then ending the war in Palestine, just in general, regardless of which way you think it should go? Who do you think will be more effective?
Dude, that's a beautiful question, actually. I will say, wait, Nish, am I on? Am I on camera? EG, am I on camera? The stream's still running, right? Am I on camera?
We can't say.
What's that?
We can't say. There's an exam coming in.
All right. Dude, here's my answer. I don't know. I don't know who will be most effective. For Ukraine, probably Trump, because he'll just pull out and let Russia just take over Ukraine. For Israel and Palestine, probably Harris.